feel a mix of emotions. Um, I remember junior year being very nervous, but also very excited to like start applications. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do to maximize the rest of your junior year. So welcome to our April workshop titled Let's Get College Ready, 3 things that juniors should be doing now to get ready for college applications. So some of you may recognize me if you came to the last workshop. My name is Karime. Thank you for joining us again for another workshop. If this is your first time attending a workshop, thank you so much for making it. I've been the one that's been texting you every week. I'm currently a graduate student studying mental health counseling, and I also enjoy K-pop, so that's a little bit about me. On this call, we also have Sarah, who is going to be our moderator. She's going to be monitoring the chat and answering any questions that I might not get to, and overall just helping the workshop run really smoothly. So thank you, Sarah, for your help. And here is a quick look at the agenda for this workshop. Essentially, the goal of today is to talk about things that you can do in this very moment to help you prepare for applications. So this includes taking advantage of specific opportunities to strengthen your college profile. These are opportunities that you might not be able to take advantage of next year when you're in the middle of filling out applications. Also, the goal is always to reduce the amount of stress and decision-making that you will have to do later on. And that will allow you to focus your attention better on your applications. So we'll start off by giving a quick behind the scenes of how college admissions really works, and then we'll finish off by setting some goals. Similar to the last workshop that we had, we do have another mini raffle during this workshop. So in addition to the long-term raffle, we're going to have mini raffles throughout the workshop. So definitely keep a lookout for those. And in order to be eligible for the $25 gift card prize, you just need to keep your camera on. If you need to like turn it off, or you need to step away for a moment, you can definitely turn it off. But to be eligible, your camera should be on. And in case you don't have your first and last name as your Zoom name, feel free to rename yourself right now or put it in the chat. This is for attendance purposes. But yeah, thank you. If you have any trouble, oh, I don't know what it is. It's okay. But yeah, if you have any trouble like renaming yourself, definitely just put your name in the chat. Now that we've kind of done introductions, let's talk about what college admissions teams really care about. This is going to vary based on what kind of college you are applying to, how competitive admissions is for that particular college. However, keep in mind that many different student profiles are valued. So today we'll go into a deeper range of things that can impress college admissions teams. So we're going to be watching a quick video that is going to basically demonstrate a game called the College Admissions Game. It was created to help students gain some insight onto what goes into the decision-making of admissions counselors when they're looking at student applications. So as you may know, admissions teams are tasked with weighing many different factors, and this video demonstrates some of those factors. This isn't literally how decisions are made. Admissions counselors actually take the time to read applications individually. If they know you, or even just as an individual, they like to consider individual student factors. I encourage you, as you're watching this video, to listen for things that you are currently doing that show value to what you bring to colleges. And you might not stand out in all the categories that are mentioned in the video, and that is completely fine. You might find that there are some things you might want to work on a little bit more, or some things that you're doing perfectly fine in. In the hypothetical school that is being showed in the video, some students are going to be accepted while others are going to be rejected. You'll see that the hypothetical college in this video is a little bit more competitive. Keep in mind, not all universities expect such high expectations. So definitely just keep that in mind, and we'll talk about your thoughts after the video.
If you have taken an exceptionally strong academic program, move up 2 spaces. If you direct the gospel choir at your church, move up 1 space. If you clearly stated that this college is your first choice by making an early decision application and commitment, move up 2 spaces. If your intended major is psychology or pre-med, move back 1 space. If your intended major is Greek, move up 1 space. If you do not know any of your teachers well enough to ask for a recommendation, move back 2 spaces. If, when you word processed your college essay, you forgot to change the name of the college you are applying to, move back 3 spaces. If you are a legacy, move up 2 spaces. If you did not write the optional college essay, move back 1 space. If the topic of your college essay was sports as a metaphor for life, move back 1 space. If you wrote the essay of the year, the one that was passed around the office, move up 2 spaces. If you plagiarized your college essay and got caught, sit down. You're out of the competition entirely. If you'll be the first in your family to attend college, move up 2 spaces. If you attended an enriching summer program between your junior and senior years, move up 2 spaces. If you come from a single parent household and must work part-time to help with expenses, move up 2 spaces. If you have participated in no extracurricular activities, move back 3 spaces. If you have participated in a significant community service project, move up 1 space. If you achieved a gold award in Girl Scouts, move up 2 spaces. If you are a varsity athlete, move up 1 space. If you're all region in a sport, move up another space. If you earned a D in an academic course at the end of your junior year, move back 3 spaces. If you wrote a letter to the college admission officer and explained the extenuating circumstances surrounding a grade of D, move up 1 space. If you decided to protect your GPA by not taking AP classes offered at your school, move back 2 spaces. If you're in the top 10% of your graduating class, move up 2 spaces. If your last name is Gates and the name on the college library is Gates, and it's not a coincidence, move all the way to the front of the line and stay there.
Okay, so now that we've watched the video, before we get started on like the next activity that we'll be doing, I do want to leave some room for you guys to ask any questions that you have, or if there's anything that you saw in the video that like really stood out to you, you can either like unmute yourself or put it in the chat, like if you have any questions about what was just shown in the video. Mm. I would like to mention that the video did show a more selective hypothetical college. In reality, not all colleges are going to expect you to take AP classes, and colleges do accept a lot of students, and their profiles vary a lot. Colleges don't have the same amount of expectations as this hypothetical one. If they did have those same expectations, then that would not be a very diverse set of students. And at the end of the day, colleges do like to have students that come from a wide range of backgrounds and abilities. When so Shania has a question. We can send emails, letters about our grades. So yes, you can. Um, if you did not do so well in a course, in one of your classes, or like even like during a specific school year due to something that happened in your personal life. So for example, if you lost a family member, or if you were dealing with an illness, something that like really impacted your academic performance, you are able to explain what happened. Obviously, it depends if you're comfortable explaining what happened to the admissions people, and if they give you the opportunity to explain, because, if you have really good grades in every other course except for one, then, there has to be some reason as to why you didn't do as well. So that's definitely something that you can do. I would also like to point out that you might have noticed that some majors were a bonus for students while others were considered to be like not so good thing. This is just due to common majors being more in demand, so the spots are more competitive compared to uncommon majors that might be less competition. For example, you might know pre-med engineering, those STEM majors tend to be in very high demand. So the spots might be limited compared to like if you're majoring in like writing, it might not be as common, so less competition. If you do have like any questions that come up later, you can always put them in the chat or text me afterwards. So for this next activity that we'll be doing, I do want to ask you guys to reflect on what you just learned from watching this video. Sarah is going to chat in the link to a Jamboard where you can add sticky notes with your reflections on what admissions teams seem to value. I want you guys to highlight things that maybe weren't on your radar already. And you might also think about what about your student profile could help you move up the line, and which ones could help you, well, not help you, but like hurt you and move you down the line in a sense. So yeah, definitely go to the Jamboard, and feel free to start adding in your thoughts. Let me just share the Jamboard so we can all kind of see what's happening. Value AP classes you take, definitely APs. We'll talk about AP classes and how they can be beneficial or maybe not always be of benefit depending on the program. They value ways that students contribute to their community. Definitely community service is a great thing to have on your college application, and also just in general to do so it can look really well. Value student goals and interests. Definitely college admissions people want to know who you are as a person. So definitely feel free to share that. Diana has a question. So realistically, what's a community service project? That is a good question. I think for me, like I would consider a community service project, like if you are, let's say, you are creating a fundraiser for something in your community, if you decide to organize maybe a cleaning up the streets type of event, that could definitely be a project, something that takes, you know, you having the initiative and starting and gathering people to help you. That could be community service, as well as just like finding different ways to give back to your community. The common ones tend to be like cleaning up the park or cleaning up the streets. Maybe there are like children, so you like read to them in the library. There's a wide range of things. Core values, definitely you'll want to highlight, what values mean to you. Leadership opportunities or experiences, definitely donations from their family. That's a good one. Definitely if your family has a lot of money, they might appreciate donations. But we know not everyone can do that. And well-rounded student, definitely don't just want someone who is like always in their academics, definitely someone who also dedicates time to other things. But yeah, you guys shared some great responses. I think I found it really funny, the donations one. But yeah, thank you guys for your participation in the activity. So as you can see, colleges tend to value a lot of different things about a student. Let me see. So yeah, great responses, real great insight. I like to kind of see what you guys are thinking, especially after watching videos like that, because it kind of shows me where you're kind of at in terms of how you will want to impress admissions teams. I do want to also take some time to just reflect overall as to how did it feel for you guys to see college admissions laid out in this way. So like as someone added a donation to the school. I think this touches on like whether this is considered like fair or unfair. Um, I do want to like touch a little bit on the unfairness of the student from like the Gates family, so like the legacy person who automatically got admitted. It's I think it's important to acknowledge that many higher ed institutions have historically and continue to contribute to inequality. Legacy admission, you've probably heard of it. It's a very obvious example of how colleges contribute to inequality, and it tends to be more common at Ivy League colleges and other highly competitive schools. However, colleges don't just want legacy students. In fact, like the brilliance of students who don't come from these backgrounds is incredibly valuable to universities, because they know that you're going to come from like a very unique background with very different experiences. um Javier wants to know, can you get a higher chance of getting into a college if your parents went or worked there? It definitely can help. Um, it can definitely help, but it depends on the school. Some schools really just do not want to like fall into that whole legacy thing. And some of them feel like, yeah, your parent went here, so like now you should go here. So it depends on the school, but it can be a benefit for some schools. Some last things I want to like point out is that like your intended major can have an impact. So like I mentioned, pre-med versus writing. The optional essay actually seeming not so optional. You guys saw the person who didn't do the optional essay didn't get very far into the line. For me, it just makes me think about when I was applying to Hunter College. I didn't do the optional essay, but my friend did, and she got accepted. So now I like sometimes wonder, if I had done the essay, would I have gotten accepted? So definitely want to think about whether an optional essay is actually optional, or could it really add something to your application? And lastly, your essay topic having an impact on your overall application. So as you saw, the one person, their essay topic literally brought them down the line. So even being selective with what you're going to write your essay on can have an impact as well. And if you need like any help figuring out what you should write your essay about, I'm more than happy to help you with that, and we can like brainstorm some ideas. Does anyone have any last like reflections or anything they want to like mention about how it felt to see college admissions put in this way? Oh, so what if there's nothing special about you? Don't say that. I'm like, no, don't say that. Each and every one of you have something special about you. Trust me, it is not always hard to like figure that out. I remember like being very also not like, I don't know what, oh, I remember also kind of being like, oh, I don't really have anything that could make may look really good to colleges, but this is why we're having this workshop so that you can think of how you can utilize the remainder of your junior year and summer to add something to your application. Even if you feel like you have nothing right now, or you feel like you don't have the best grades, there are other ways to impress admissions offices, not just GPA, and we'll talk more about that later in the workshop. But please, like, if you need any help, like figuring out how to make yourself stand out, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to brainstorm with you, and we will find a way to help you stand out in your applications. So like I just mentioned, as we saw, like GPA is used to decide how students begin. So your academic track record is important because it shows your readiness to succeed in the academic settings of college. I personally did not realize how rigorous college actually was until I was actually in it. So definitely want to start thinking about that now rather than later. And part of it has to do with your ability to delegate time and responsibility, which is why grades is just one piece of what makes you look good to admissions officers. Also taking honors courses and participating in other academic competitions can demonstrate how ready you are and show colleges that you're ready to continue your learning. Beyond academics, there's other ways to impress admissions teams, like I just touched on. For example, you can take on leadership roles. So if you are part of a club, part of an organization, definitely see if you can take a leadership role, whether you are treasurer, vice president, secretary, etc. Anything that shows that you are able to manage your time and take on responsibility besides just being a member of something. Responsibility is an obvious one. So something, it can be something such as like supporting classmates, family, or community. If I were to give an example, I've always tutored my cousins. So that's like a family responsibility that I have, which can really show that I am a responsible person and give back to community in whatever way I can. Any wins that you have, whether you are part of a team or if you have any personal awards or recognition, involvement. Like I mentioned, colleges don't just want someone who is purely focused on academics. If you have multiple interests and you engage in them outside of school, that's just as impressive as like a good GPA, because it shows that you like to involve yourself in multiple things. Lastly, character, kindness, integrity, determination, your grit. Um, you will have the opportunity to meet admissions counselors. So when you go on tours or even just like through email, you'll be meeting admissions counselors, and the impression you give of your character can also leave an impact. So even if you are worried that you might miss a few things, if you can really leave an impression on them and that like, oh, this person was so nice, they're more likely to remember you. I know that's one tip that they gave me when I was meeting admissions counselors, is to like really show them that I was interested in the school by asking questions and just overall presenting myself in a good light. And lastly, I do want to know about APs and honors. So like I mentioned earlier, whether you need them or not depends on the school and program. APs and honors can be very beneficial if you are applying to a competitive program. But if you're not applying to such a competitive program, then they might not be as necessary. You could take them if you want. Really just depends on the programs you'll be applying to. Now that we've covered what college admissions really looks like, let's talk about the 3 things that you can focus your attention on this year. So these are things that if you focus on them right now, will strengthen your profile and candidacy for specific colleges and decrease the stress that you feel later. So I have a question. I have a question in the chat. So APs aren't encouraged for community college. Yeah, there, if you're planning for community college, it might not be like something that like is really needed to make you stand out. We'll talk a little bit like about community colleges. But yeah, I wouldn't stress too much about APs if you're mainly planning to apply to community colleges. But if you want to take them, definitely take them. Sometimes they're interesting. Okay, so talking on the 3 things that you can focus on this year, The first one is extracurriculars, followed by recommendation letters, and then the SAT/ACT. So you might notice that the SAT and ACT category has a little star next to it. This is because the requirements are changing, as you may all know, due to the pandemic and just the overall shift in admissions process. There are now special considerations that we're going to talk about so that we can help you make the decision on whether you should take these exams or not. Think of this moment right now as the part where you trick out your car. If any of you play Mario Kart, this is when you choose your specific wheels and your car to like help you win the race. So yeah, these are like the 3 things you could do right now. Starting off with extracurriculars, I want you guys to think about what counts as an extracurricular. You can either unmute yourself or put it in the chat. What for you counts as an extracurricular, and then we'll discuss some of what you mentioned. As for Gabriel's question, does college have preference between SAT and ACT? So 3 things. Some colleges are requiring SAT, some don't. Some only require the SAT, some require both the SAT and ACT. It really just depends on the school that you're applying for, so making sure that you are checking the requirements. As for extracurriculars, sports, clubs, hobbies, those definitely do count as extracurriculars. If I might provide like an example, I did the fundraising committee at my school, so that counted as an extracurricular activity. I also was a head teacher. I volunteered as a head teacher at my church for 2 years, so that showed that was an extracurricular I did. Any other like guesses on what can count as an extracurricular?
So we kind of already mentioned like the bulk of it, but I was gonna mention like you branching out of your school community, because everybody, like the standard student is gonna take the exams, gonna take the quizzes, the classes, the sports, the PE, but then extracurriculars is like what kind of levels you out with other students and makes you on par with the outstanding tenacious students.
Yes. Yeah, so definitely like doing extracurriculars can definitely help with that, because it just shows that you're able to balance multiple things, not just your academics. So definitely extracurriculars can make you look very good to admissions offices. Someone added any regular habitual activity that is not related to normal school classes. Definitely. Like I mentioned, I used to tutor cousins, so that counted as an extracurricular. In reality, a whole range of activities can count as extracurriculars. So like some of you mentioned, after school clubs and sports, any non-school affiliated activities, community service, any activism, work and family responsibilities. So if you have family responsibilities such as taking care of your siblings, maybe your family has a business that you help take care of, that can count as an extracurricular. Any personal projects and self-guided study. If you're someone that, for example, likes to write comics on your own time, then that can count as an extracurricular activity. Definitely a wide range of them. You do get bonus points if you hold any leadership positions, any long-term commitments, or if you take any initiative to start a club or create a business. I've seen a lot more young people start businesses now, so that can definitely look really good to admissions offices. Long-term commitments, if you've been on the soccer team for 3 years, then that gets you bonus points because it shows that you can commit your time to different things. But yeah, definitely if you need to like clarify whether something you are doing as an extracurricular or not, feel free to let me know and I'm happy to talk it out with you. And thank you guys for sharing. So you might recall that we shared a brag sheet with you previously. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. You may have already started thinking about what extracurricular activities you have done or are currently involved in. If you didn't get to fill out the brag sheet, that is completely fine. I encourage you to take the time to work on it after the workshop. Sarah is just going to go ahead and add the link to the brag sheet in the chat, so that you can make a copy of it in case you didn't get to do it. Ultimately, the goal with sharing this brag sheet with you guys was to help you start thinking about your experiences, what strengths you have that make you unique, and help you realize what you bring to colleges or what you can bring to the college that you attend. It also just helps you think about the network of support that you have and any potential recommenders. Altogether, these are pieces that will help you start forming your narrative. This is the story that you are going to share with admissions teams, and it's going to show who you are as a person. I will point out that bragging about yourself is not always easy for everyone, and it might be hard at first, but it is definitely a skill that I would encourage you to work on, especially since your applications are basically you bragging about yourself and why a college will be lucky to have you, which is true because you guys are all unique. You each have your own strengths. You each have your own experiences that are valued, extracurriculars that are valued, and you are already good enough. It's just about now showing that to the admissions office. And if any of you have any trouble making a copy of the brag sheet, feel free to let me know and I can like resend it to you. So yeah, continuing with extracurriculars, you're going to be putting these extracurriculars on paper, but you'll also have an opportunity to talk about it in your personal statement, in any shorter supplemental essays. You'll be able to talk about yourself in various different ways. The goal of our next exercise is actually to have you start thinking about what main points about yourself and your narrative you're going to want to share with colleges. So what is the main themes of your narrative? If you were to record yourself, like record a 2-minute video about yourself, what are the main points you'll want to make sure to share with an admissions team? We'll give you guys about like 4 minutes to jot down some ideas, up to 5 bullet points of what you would want to point out. Definitely don't worry about sharing this. This is more of a personal reflection, so you don't have to share it out loud. Yeah. So we'll give you guys about 4 minutes. Keep in mind, I would choose something that is empowering to you, makes you feel good about yourself. Mhm. Okay, now that you guys have had about like 4-ish minutes to think about what your main points would be for your narrative, I want you guys to, oh, sorry, my thing froze. Oh, oh. Apologies for that. I thought my screen froze. Yeah. So now that you've had some time to reflect on your narrative, I just want to further discuss extracurriculars and why while some of you might already have a lot of extracurriculars and others might not have as many, there are ways to complement your narrative with different ways of actually getting more involved at your extracurriculars. So for example, if you are someone that already is a part of a lot of outside activities, you might want to take a look at the left column labeled to go deeper. You want to consider extracurriculars and other things that you're involved in and how you could get more deeply involved with them. So for example, taking on a leadership role, if you've been part of, let's say, the debate team for a while, maybe you want to aim to try to be the president of the debate team. Something that shows that you can take it up another level. For those of you who might not have as many extracurriculars, you might want to consider the left column as well. So if you are only a part of one extracurricular activity, maybe trying to go a little bit deeper in that extracurricular activity, such as leadership roles. But you'll also want to take a look at the second column. So adding maybe 1 or 2 meaningful extracurricular activities. Sarah is going to put in the chat a list of extracurricular ideas. So feel free to check them out, see if there's anything that's interesting, because these are potential extracurriculars that you can be a part of and help add to your narrative. For all of you, you should be considering things that represent who you are and reflect who you are and who you want to share about yourself with admissions teams. So for example, like if you are choosing to add in an extracurricular activity, maybe pick something that is meaningful for you. If you are interested in like technology, maybe there's a technology club or a technology organization outside of your school that you will want to be a part of to show that you are dedicating your time to something that reflects what you potentially want to do in college. I want you guys to spend about like 5 minutes just individually reflecting and checking out the document that Sarah has put in the chat and taking note of anything you want to follow up on. Yeah, if you have like any questions about that, you can put them in the chat. But definitely brainstorm, think about, are you someone who should go deeper into your extracurriculars or potentially add 1 or 2 meaningful extracurricular activities? Mm, mm. Okay, just because I don't want to like keep you guys too long afterwards, sorry to cut the reflection a little bit short. Definitely, if you want to follow up with me about extracurriculars and any questions that you have, you can definitely reach out to me. But I do want to get to talking about the 2 other things you can work on. So that the second thing is recommendation letters, which I think one student asked about. So for recommendation letters, a strong recommendation letter will give the reader insight into who you are and highlight your academic and personal strengths. I will quickly like want you guys to think about like who can write you a recommendation letter. Think about someone who is able to speak on your academic strengths, and who can demonstrate who you are as a person. Think about who you could potentially ask. You guys could put your responses either in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself. If you guys need like any ideas of who could potentially be like a recommender, I think a more obvious one is like teachers. Definitely teachers are a great recommendation person to have. Someone mentioned guidance counselors, definitely guidance counselors. If your school is anything like mine, it had a guidance counselor and a college counselor, so there is that distinction as well. English and STEM teachers, definitely, especially if you are interested in STEM or English. Counselors, teachers who like you, that is true. Teachers who know you would be strong recommenders. Soccer coach as well, especially if they know your like personality. Advisors, former wow, I can't say that word. Former employers, that's a good one. Especially if the teacher has known you for a long time, it's even better because they'll be able to better speak on your character. Let's see. Great responses, guys. So definitely all the ones that you guys mentioned can be recommenders. The main one, teachers, they will know you best academically, and if you have a good relationship with them, they will know who you are as a person. Guidance counselors, college counselors at your school, they might have to write your recommendation letter for some schools. I believe my college did require my guidance counselor to write me a recommendation letter. So definitely, if you haven't spoken to your guidance counselor in a while, I would encourage you to do so. Someone mentioned coaches, which is great. They can be strong, especially if they know you well. Employers also, although they are less common, they can be strong in some cases, especially if they really can vouch for your work ethic and your personality. I want to like give you a quick heads up that you will be working on an exercise where we're going to be putting you into the shoes of someone who's writing a lot of recommendation letters. And I want you to think about how you can make yourself stand out. Keep in mind, some of the people that you will be asking recommendation letters from are going to have a lot of people asking them. So you're really going to want to think about how you can make yourself stand out. So for our next activity, Sarah will be chatting in a link to a slide stack where we're going to break you up into groups. And so depending on the group that you are assigned to is the slide that you're going to fill out. So for example, if you are assigned to breakout room number 1, you're going to fill out group number 1 slide. Here is an example of what the slide looks like. I want you guys to think about, if you were a teacher writing recommendation letters, how could a student make you excited to write their recommendation letter? Welcome back, everyone. I was looking at some of the things that you guys were adding to the slides. Thank you guys so much for your engagement. I saw some great responses. Just to point some out, picking a teacher that you work with outside of school can definitely help, especially if you've been able to build a connection with that teacher. Someone whose class you're a big participant in, definitely they're more likely to recognize you if they recall you participating. Complete your work on time definitely shows good work ethic. Going beyond expectations, that's a good one. Be an active participant, so not falling asleep in class, another good one. If you talk to your teachers outside of class hours, definitely keep in mind your teachers are also people, so checking in on them, making sure that they're okay, being interested and asking questions. Yes, appropriately, like asking questions about how they're doing, anything maybe that they want to share with you. Those are all great responses, guys. Thank you so much for your engagement. Let's see. I'm just gonna reshare my screen really quickly so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, so once again, great engagement, guys. I liked all the points that you mentioned. One that I felt was really strong is engaging with your teacher outside of class time. So definitely participate during class, but also check in with your teacher afterwards. You never know if there's anything, you guys might have in common, or just show that you are interested in who they are as a person. If teachers are there all the time, so if you can treat them like a person, that's even better. Definitely makes you stand out. If you ask good questions in class, so it shows that you really are paying attention to what they're teaching you. If you thank them for any feedback that they give and actually show improvement, great way to show them that you listen. And share other things that you're involved in or work that you're doing. In summary, I want you guys to try to figure out who are the teachers, potentially coaches, and other adults who could write you a recommendation letter and help start cultivating those relationships by having a good impression with them, doing things that will make them excited to do this for you. For example, one of them was like a drama teacher, and so I joined the drama club to show that I was interested in the drama area, and that really helped me foster a relationship with that teacher and made my recommendation letter way more stronger. Keep in mind, you're going to want to get at least 2 teachers to be your recommenders. One of them should at least be from the 11th grade because your academic performance will be more recent in their mind. We will be sending out a tip sheet with more in-depth information on how you can ask for recommendation letters towards the end of the school year. However, if you want to get the tip sheet now, feel free to send me a text and I'm happy to send it over. Overall, many schools are going to encourage you to ask for at least one recommendation letter before the summer of your junior year, because this will give teachers a lot more time to write it over the summer and get you a head start. So definitely, if you already have a teacher in mind, I would ask before you go on summer vacation so that they have more time. Touching really quickly on school counselors, like I mentioned, you might have like a college counselor or a guidance counselor. Some schools have both. So mine had a college counselor and a guidance counselor. I want to normalize the fact that some counselors are going to be really involved in the college application process, while others are going to be less involved. However, no matter how involved or uninvolved they are, it is really important for you to have a good relationship with your school counselor, because there are going to be things that you are going to need from them and you might need to remind them, and having a positive relationship with them will make it a lot easier. Counselors in general can help you with writing recommendation letters. Some colleges might actually require you to get a recommendation letter from your counselor, so keep that in mind. They might give you college recommendations, so they might look at your grades and your extracurriculars and say, hey, I think you're a great fit for this school, which can really help you, support you with creating your college list. For the most part, they are the only ones that can attach your transcript and any other high school documents. So definitely want to have good communication with them on that. And lastly, they might even know some admissions officers at colleges, especially if you are interested in that college. Having that communication is going to be beneficial. And lastly, they tend to make themselves more available to whoever shows initiative and investment. So the more you show initiative and investment, the more happy they are to help you. And if you are trying to build a relationship with them and they are just not responding, don't take it personal. They're probably overwhelmed. Sometimes they have up to 400 students that they're helping with college applications. So don't even fret. We do want to give you guys like a 5-minute bathroom break and like get any water before we touch on the last portion, which is going to be the SAT and ACT exams. So take 5 minutes, go get water, go to the bathroom, and we'll be back. to the bathroom, do whatever you needed to do. We are almost done, so we're finishing strong. Hang in there. The last thing that we'll be talking about and discussing is the SAT and ACT. As you may know, with everything that's happened the last few years, the requirements for these exams have changed. So we're going to talk about deciding whether you should even take these exams or not, and how they can benefit you if you do. And then we'll end off by setting some goals, and then any other information that I have to share with you. So let's just discuss one thing first. During the first year of the pandemic, more than half of all four-year colleges became test optional. So the submitting SAT scores was optional. Depending on where you are interested in applying will determine whether they require the test, whether it's test optional, or whether they might not even be allowed to consider it. Keep in mind the vast majority of community college, the majority of community colleges don't require the SAT or ACT exams. So if you're only applying to community colleges, you should check with the ones that you're interested in to make sure that it's not necessary. But usually they don't ask for those exams. However, for most students who are requiring community colleges, we also recommend that you consider four-year colleges just because of financial aid. Financial aid tends to be better, and overall, just keep your options open. If you have any questions about community colleges versus regular four-year colleges, definitely feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to discuss. The changes with this exam have also given you guys more of a choice. And also lastly, keep in mind that many top universities tend to admit a higher percentage of students who submit scores compared to those who don't submit their SAT scores. So you might be asking yourself, should I take the SAT/ACT? There are three questions that you can ask yourself to break down this really big question. The first question is, do the schools I want to apply to require it? Second question, how does my application compare to those who are typically accepted at these schools? And lastly, do the scholarships at these schools or other scholarships I want to apply to require the SAT/ACT? These are three questions that can help you make the decision. So for example, if the schools you want to apply to require it, then you're going to need to take it. The one I can think of off the top of my head is like Columbia University, I believe still asks for SAT, unless that's just grad school, but whatever. How does my application compare to others? If you feel like your application without the exam isn't as strong, then maybe the exam can make it stronger. I would like to note that with the third question, external scholarships, especially some of the big ones like state scholarships, do tend to ask for the SAT. They might require it or consider it, and if they consider it, it might help add to your application. If you are planning to apply to any external scholarships, you should look into whether or not they require the SAT/ACT exam. So let's break down these questions a little bit more. We'll begin by getting a sense of whether the schools you're interested in are test required, test optional, or test blind. You can find this out by looking at a handful of schools that are on your radar, or even any dream schools that you might have. In this list, Sarah is going to put a list of schools in the chat that have recently updated their requirements for the SAT/ACT exams. I want you to read across all the columns of each school to see if they've announced their policy for fall 2024. And then you'll be able to, determine whether you need to or not. This isn't a full list of schools that are interested, this isn't a full list of schools, but if you are interested, you can always look up quote unquote school name SAT requirements 2024. So for example, Columbia University SAT requirements 2024. So take some time to look through the list of those schools. Feel free to chat in what you find. Were there any schools that you looked at that were test required, test optional, test blind, or a combination? Are there schools that have already made their decision or haven't made their decision yet? Definitely let me know if there's anything interesting you find. Mhm. Mm. Mm. Anyone find anything interesting on the list? If you don't find anything interesting, that's fine too. As long as like you're taking a look at the list. Mhm. And for any questions, yes, the recording will be sent to you later on, so you can always look back on it. Mhm. Mm. Okay, now that you've taken some time to like look through the list, definitely if there's something you found that was interesting and you want to share with me, definitely put it in the chat or in the text messages if you want. Someone did say pretty crazy to see so many test optional schools. Definitely, I think we are moving towards a more test optional college application process, which has to do with a whole array of things. Like if you've done any research into like SATs, how it actually doesn't really show your college readiness. So I think that is also adding to the move. Princeton, Harvard, and Columbia are test optional. If that's what the list shows, then they are. There are some pretty good schools that are optional. Definitely. I believe some of the like more in demand schools have started to realize that the SAT actually can predict college readiness. So that's why they are starting to be test optional. So yeah, definitely keep looking at the list. I believe it updates. If you can't find a college that you're specifically looking for, definitely try to do the research on your own. And if you need any help with that, I'm happy to help. Some schools have it test optional based on GPA. Yeah, some schools will make the SAT test optional depending on your GPA. So if you have a high GPA, you might not need to submit the SAT. But I haven't seen many schools like that, but I'm sure there are some. Caltech is test blind. Definite, yes. Some very good schools that are test optional or test blind. But yeah, thank you guys for sharing. I'm glad that you guys were a little bit surprised with some of the things you found. For the second question, how does my application compare to those who typically are accepted to the school on my list? I want you to check out the GPAs of the admitted students as some of your top school choices. You can Google on your own the GPA for the schools that you are interested in. So for example, you might search up average GPA of admitted student to Harvard University, and then you'll be able to see what the typical GPA is for an accepted student at Harvard University. For example, you might see that like the typical GPA is a 3.2, which I think translates to like a 90 something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but definitely Google. Google has a lot of information. It can help you determine how your application compares. And if you need any help with that, once again, I am available to help. I do want you guys to take into consideration grades, especially in major connected subjects, AP honor courses taken or not taken, and extracurriculars. Major connected classes and honors/AP classes demonstrate academic achievement, and they play a role for admissions teams. However, students should not always take too much. You don't want to risk your grades. Definitely APs are great, but definitely don't try to take so many where it's very hard to balance. For example, or for like the major related courses, if let's say you take AP psychology and you're interested in majoring in psychology, then that can look really good for admissions people, because then they're like, oh, like they already did really good in this introduction to psychology course. You don't need to know your major at this point. You can apply undecided. However, still helps to take into consideration what your potential major could be and how well you did in those courses or related courses in high school. And overall, in summary, your GPA is just one piece of your application, but it is an important one. And if you don't submit the SAT/ACT scores, admissions teams will pay extra attention to your grades and courses taken so that they can better understand how college ready you are. Let's see, will one bad score on a college class affect you really badly? I think we talked about this earlier, like if you do bad in a course and it was due to like any extra, what's the word? Extra standing? Extra things, like let's say something that was happening in your personal life, you can ask for an opportunity to explain why that was and what was happening at the time if you feel comfortable. Let's see, would that go over for, oh, yeah, Sarah just chatted in the GPA, the admissions calculator. Definitely feel free to check that out. Let's see, oh. I will answer. If you guys have any additional questions that I don't get to answer, feel free to text them to me and I will respond in messages. Moving on to the last question, do the scholarships at these schools or other scholarships you want to apply to require the SAT/ACT? This information is a little bit harder to find, but it is worth it in the long run because it can affect how much you end up having to pay for college. Some colleges don't require the SAT for admissions, but they might require it for certain academic or merit-based scholarships. So if there's a scholarship at a school that you really want to get, it might require the SAT. So definitely Google that. If you can't find the answer on Google on whether you need these exams for that particular scholarship, I would also recommend reaching out to admissions people. You can usually find the contact information on the website. They're more than happy to help you and answer any questions that you have. You can even ask them as you start looking at colleges. You can ask, could I lose out on any scholarships or financial aid money if I apply test optional? Really just depends on you. Like if you really want that scholarship and you need more information on it, definitely find that out sooner than later. Some additional considerations you'll want to take is test taking a strength of yours? Not everyone is a good test taker. I know I took the SAT 3 times and I only did good the first time. The other 2 times didn't help. But if you are a good test taker, it can be an easy way to strengthen your profile. If you're not a good test taker, it will take time to prepare, but it is 100% doable, especially if you do need the SAT. Hopefully by now you're starting to get a sense of what would help your applications if you do submit the SAT scores or not. And we do want you to spend some time on all 3 of these questions in order to arrive at your final decision. But definitely if you need any additional support, we are here to help. Keep in mind, you don't have to submit your scores. For students who choose to not submit, there is a higher emphasis on other elements of your application. So for example, there might be more focus on your GPA, your personal statement, extracurriculars, and recommendation letters. You should then dedicate more time to these components of your application. If you're not going to submit the SAT scores, definitely focus on boosting your GPA during junior year. Really dedicate some time to writing your personal statement. We do offer help with the personal statement if you need someone to look over it. and getting involved in any other extracurriculars and getting some strong recommendation letters. So in order to effectively prepare for college applications, so one of the good things about like the the Let's Get Ready program is that students, including you, are already in the program. We do offer a test prep program, which is great. We provide classes and help with accountability. You have an instructor that you can ask questions to. We have been sending out text in case if you're not already part of our test prep program. We have been sending text for you to sign up for the summer. You can also check out any other SAT prep programs that are out there. One that oh, it's already there. There's also like the option to self-study. So teach yourself. If you're someone who can, really focus on your own and teach yourself, you might be able to use like College Board practice test, Khan Academy, and Ivy Global. I will point out that for Khan Academy, I believe that College Board has partnered with them to create an SAT prep course on Khan Academy, so definitely check it out. You should also plan to take it more than once if you do decide to take it. Usually you either do really well the first time or the second time, whichever. You can also, I believe they still do like the super score. So if you do really well in the reading, writing section the first time and then really well on the math section the second time, you can combine your score into a super score, which only helps your chances of looking better. If you need any additional test prep support, definitely reach out and I'm happy to help. We do have access to fee waivers. So first, ask your guidance counselor because you should get a fee waiver for the SAT exam. But if they don't have one, definitely reach out to us and we can help you access a fee waiver. Lastly, like an overall main takeaway we want you guys to have is that if any of the schools or scholarships you want to apply to require it, you should take the SAT. If it would strengthen your application in important ways, it's a good idea to take it. And if you're not sure, you should probably still take it. It doesn't hurt to take it. Yeah. Does anyone have like any other questions about this, about the SAT/ACT? If not, that is okay. You can always reach out to me over text. Now, to end off our workshop for today, what else should I be doing this year? This is more like where I get to tell you what I wish I would have done. So when I think back on how I was preparing for college during my junior year, some things I wish I had done was make more of an effort to connect with my teachers. I did connect with some of them, but probably not as much as I should have. I did start doing it towards the end of the school year. I would have started sooner. I would have involved myself in a range of activities. So I did have like 2 extracurriculars, but I think I should have pushed myself a little to engage in other things, like any clubs that were at my school. As well as start early. I really should have started my college applications earlier, which is why we emphasize you guys starting earlier. Even something as small as starting your personal statement earlier can make things a lot more easier later on. Some things that did really help me during junior year was my guidance counselor. He offered support when the college office was really busy. My school had a lot of students, so there were a lot of students at the college office every single day. But my guidance counselor came in and helped me. He's actually the one that recommended the college I went to. So I have him to thank for that. My friends and parents also really helped me stay motivated. As a first gen, it can be very hard to stay motivated. So having people that support you and encourage you will be very beneficial. And lastly, my church actually provided SAT and college prep for free. I was also part of Let's Get Ready. So I also did Let's Get Ready's SAT prep course. So that was really beneficial for me. And these are just some things that if you could do now, I would recommend you do now to make things easier. And like I've been mentioning throughout the workshop, it's always good to talk to others and ask any questions. we encourage you to send me a text. If you have any questions for me, please send it through Mainstay, or for you guys, it's a text message. I'm more than happy to help provide individualized answers for any questions that you have outside of this workshop. You can ask me anything regarding like extracurriculars, SAT, etc. Yeah, so feel free to send it whenever. Send any questions that you have. For our last section, we are going to move into setting some goals that are related to how you can finish your junior year strong. So when you're setting goals, I do recommend taking into consideration this acronym AIMS. We sent out this overview of features for setting a strong goal over text in case you guys didn't see it. Basically, when you're setting goals, you want to make sure that they are attainable, incremental, meaningful, and specific. Attainable is something that is reachable. So when you're setting a goal, you have to remind yourself, is this goal reachable? Is it going to be easy? Is it going to be difficult? Incremental, how can you break down the steps you need in order to achieve this goal? Meaningful, so this should be a goal that you feel will really add importance to what you want to achieve and is going to be something that adds to a larger goal. And lastly, specifics. So what does achieving this goal look like? If you can't imagine or describe what achieving this goal looks like, then it might need to be a little bit more specific. Before we move on to our last activity, does anyone have any questions about this image or this explanation of setting goals? If not, that is okay. So yeah, for our last activity, I want you guys to think about what is something you want to strengthen for your profile or applications. Think about extracurriculars, recommendation letters, relationships with teachers and school counselors, or the SAT exam, etc. I encourage you to set a goal for this week, a goal for this month, and a goal for this year. You by no means have to share this out loud with us. This is more of a personal reflection, but I will be following up with you next week about what goals you've set for yourself. So yeah, definitely keep any goals in mind. I will be checking in, and if you have any trouble setting goals, I'm more than happy to help you with that. If you need like any examples, I would say, like, for example, this week I want to start having a conversation with my math teacher who I might be able to get a good recommendation letter from. So that is like a good goal to start setting this week, and then this month, and then this year. In closing, today we talked about some things that you can be doing in the coming weeks and months to begin getting yourself ready for college applications. Taking these steps will hopefully help strengthen your profile and likely result in you making a better impression on colleges. It also will hopefully decrease your stress next year when you are actually filling out applications, which, trust me, you'll thank yourself for it later if you do get some of the more stressful things out of the way. I also look forward to connecting with you all about the goals that you have set and anything else related to any of the topics that we've discussed today. The recording will be sent, so if you ever need to look back on anything that we covered, you are more than able to look at the recording. And does anyone have any last minute questions? Anything you want to share? And if I didn't get to your question, I apologize. Please send it to me via text. I just didn't want to like give you a response. Let's see. If my sibling went to an institution that I'm interested in, to answer, like, if a sibling has gone to an institution that you're interested in, it can help you if the school does have like a legacy admission thing. If they don't really consider legacy, then it might not have as much of an effect on your application and your acceptance. but we can definitely talk about that more in text. Why does the SAT? Why does taking the SAT more than 3 times look bad? I don't necessarily think it looks bad. They won't really know how many times you took the SAT exam. So I wouldn't worry about how many times you take it. But yeah, overall, thank you guys for joining us, and I hope you got some good information from the workshop. There is a feedback form that we would like you guys to fill out, just so that we can continue to improve the workshops that we provide and the information that we share. So feel free to take some time to fill out that form, and thank you guys for your participation and engagement.